Greetings, friends, and welcome to the Get Ready webinar. This is Dr. Marcia McPhee, and I'm excited to let you know about our brand new series for 2024 based on Revised Common Lectionary Year B called What Are You Up To? Now, this whole series came up in my consciousness because as I studied the lectionary scriptures for Year B, the word up actually showed up in every one of the weeks, somewhere in the biblical material, in the scriptural materials, except for Palm Sunday. And so I decided to use sit up, right? Sit up and take notice on that one. But that's the origin of this. And it actually began to be such a wonderful thing to work on theologically, because we often associate Lent with actually a practice that didn't even start until the Middle Ages, till actually the 11th century is when Ash Wednesday started. And that's when the focus, the theological focus of Lent started to be closer to the sort of confession, getting right with God, turning around, right? Repentance. That became the flavor, the dominant flavor of the season in the 11th century. But prior to that, Lent was actually developed and was in place by the 4th century, and it was primarily a season of preparation for catechumens to become baptized. So instead of a more penitential focus, although there's confession in this series, we want to think less about giving something up and more about getting up to something, right? So that's why it's called What Are You Up To? Get up to something instead of giving something up this Lent. So you can find out more, and if you're not a Worship Design Studio subscriber, you can purchase this a la carte. Now remember, if you use one of our series, you want to try it out, and if you've never done our series before, you can do that. And then if you decide you want to become a subscriber, which gives you access to everything all year long, we'll give you the money back that you spent on the a la carte toward a full year subscription. So know that it's great to try it out with the a la carte and then upgrade if you'd like to and get that money back. So what are you up to? This is a deep dive. We're going to look at the series. We're going to start with the trailer, because a trailer is something we've started doing. My book, Think Like a Filmmaker, I studied filmmaking, and one of the things they do is they make a trailer, right? A movie trailer that invites people, lets people know what is the main message. And so this is a trailer for this one, and know that in your materials, when you do this series, you get this trailer to use on your own, but without all of our stuff at the end. It's blank so that you can put your own church's information there. But let's take a look at this trailer, the main message for this series. So, friends, that is the main message of the series. This is what I call a series synopsis. It's also a filmmaker kind of thing. They call it a log line. And when you read the description of the movie, so we want the synopsis sort of gives your folks, you and your folks, sort of what is the core of the message. So we have a scripture fragment here. If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. So what does it mean to take up the cross or take up the spiritual practices that make the world a better place? So Lent is often known as a time of giving something up in order to make room in our lives for spiritual pursuits. Rather than just giving up in Lent, the scriptures ask us to consider all that Jesus is up to and all that he asks us to be up to in his name. Instead of bemoaning what we can't do or used to do in a culture where measuring up to external standards seems impossible, this Lent, we will celebrate the small things that we can do right now to respond to God's call in our place for our time. So, friends, a series, when I develop a series, it's always sort of a three-legged stool, and that is, what are the scriptures, especially when I'm dealing with a lectionary base of scriptures like this one is? What are the scriptures? What are we hearing? What are the main themes that are coming out of that? But there are lots of themes that come out of the scriptures. But then also, what is the message that we need to hear for our time? That's the context, right? The context here that I sort of wanted to address was that frustration with the way the world is and our feeling deflated, our feeling like there's very little that we can do, which is actually not true. But sometimes we think we have to do big things. And rather, what we can do is all we can do, and that is the small things that perhaps we're already doing. We just are not seeing how they contribute. And so we're going to focus on those small things, those micro practices in this. I think a lot of churches, that the third leg there is your context, right? So you're going to take our materials that we developed, and then you're going to apply it to your context. So you will adapt these materials as you need to be really on the mark for what your community needs to hear. Since pandemic, especially, I hear a lot of church people focusing on what we can't do, what we used to do, and we've got to clear that slate, right? Maybe that's what we need to fast from, is thinking about the good old days. What can we do right now? Okay, so the different services are called these things. Store up is Ash Wednesday, because it's that scripture about storing up treasures in heaven. Come up is that scripture of Jesus' baptism and him coming up out of the water and hearing that voice saying, "You are my beloved," right? So coming up from that which keeps us underwater, right? Take up your cross and follow me. Raise up. Jesus says, "I will be raised up." So what does it mean to raise up? Light up, lift up, sit up is Palm Sunday. Sit up and take notice, or Jesus sat up on the donkey, right? Holy Week is upended, right? The disciples, everyone in Jesus' life felt upended. So what do we do when our world feels upended? There's a really fun video that I found of a company that made a hot air balloon. And I'm going to talk about hot air balloons in a moment, which is our anchor image. But they created a hot air balloon that was upside down. You just couldn't really see the basket that was really on the bottom. It was real, anyway, upended. Sometimes we feel upended. And then Easter is look up. The scripture is when the women go and they look up and they see the gardeners, they see Jesus. So those are the way that the word up comes up. Oh my gosh, our language is full of up things. And I'm going to tell you about the daily devotional, which uses those as prompts, all of these things in our language. So the anchor image is hot air balloons. There's many different things we could think about in terms of up, but the mechanics of how a hot air balloon rises, that'll preach. And in fact, in our sermon fodder, we have some analogies, some metaphors around that. It's also something that we children are fascinated with hot air balloons. There's so many things, but one of the most interesting thing to me is that a hot air balloon is one of the very first ways that humans were able to get high enough to get a big picture of the earth. And I was just reading, I'm reading a book on awe right now for some research on awe, AWE, and they lifted this up, and that was that a hot air balloon was one of the first ways, even before planes, that people could get a bird's eye view. And there was a quote by someone that sounded very much like the quotes that we hear from astronauts who get up and they see that long view and their lives are changed. So part of this is not just it's micro practices, the small things we can do, but also this hot air balloon image gives us the opportunity to look at life in its larger picture, not just the nightly news picture, right? The larger picture. So that anchor image we use throughout. Now we have the scripts. auxiliary documents with everything you need. Again, you adapt for your context. We're going to go through those. All right. So downloads, what's included and what to do with it. This comes out of the overview document, which you can see and read the whole thing even before you purchase the series on the page, which is worshipdesignstudio.com/up to UP2, numeral 2, no spaces. Okay. So the overview, this is a great way to get your whole team on board, a great way to take a look at the theme and the order of worship. Scriptures and synopses, you can see how each one of these things pulls out the theme each one of the weeks. 9 worship scripts, which is Ash Wednesday, 6 Sundays in Lent, Holy Week, and Easter. Children's time scripts, oh my gosh, we'll talk about that in a moment, but featuring that film, that animated film Up, which has so many beautiful lessons in it. Communion script for this series, sermon fodder, which we always do. And in addition, when the series begins, we have weekly sermon discussions on the website. So people who are preparing their sermons can really dig into it with each other, give each other ideas. That's one of the benefits of Worship Design Studio, is that you never have to start from scratch and you never are alone. And we're going to put you in conversation with each other in our website. Visual and media ideas, music documents and files, logo and trailer, small group suggestions, and a daily devotional this year. So we're going to take a look at each one of these things. This is what it looks like inside our Worship Design Studio website. The series materials, you can get to all of them here. In the left menu, you scroll down to Lent series. It's the top one on the list because it's our newest. And that will open up this whole horizontal menu, series materials, highlighted hashtags, photos, and ideas that you can upload so you can share ideas with each other. The people who are part of the series, the members, so that you can start conversations with each other, chat, etc. And so also download the entire series. That's where you can go to the link, which takes you to our file sharing system. You do not have to create an account in this. It just opens up this page. You click on the down arrow to download everything onto your computer, or you can do them one at a time if you want to, but it's the easiest way is just to download in one fell swoop. It's going to ask you if you want a current version of all files or all versions. Just leave it as is. Just click download. And then this is what the file list is going to look like on your computer. And we do a numerical system so that they're kind of in an order that makes sense rather than an alphabetical order. All right, so let's get to it. The sermon fodder, I'll just start there because a lot of preachers want to know about the sermon fodder. We have Ben, who is one of our staff at Worship Design Studio, Ben Hensley, has written some wonderful sermon fodder, and we did a little bit of research around hot air balloons and how you can tie the sort of physics of that into the points that you're making, using them as analogies. And so that's not the only thing in there. Of course, there's some exegesis, but this sermon fodder is meant to jumpstart you, not give you your whole sermon, because everybody is going to proclaim it a different way. But we can give you some jump starting for that. I also have a link to an interview that I did with a mentor of mine, Reverend Dr. Tex Sample, who is his specialty is social sociology, the sociology of religion. And he is writing a book on micro practices of churches that are doing incredible justice ministries. And while that book is not out yet, we talk about a lot of these things, a lot of the examples. And so this is just, it's not Sunday by Sunday. It's just meant for you to get some ideas about what you might want to institute during this series. And we're talking about micro practices. So we're not talking about whole programs. We're talking about, you might decide that and it's going to be based on your context, on your community. A friend of mine just posted on Facebook the other day, we found out that the number of churches who are making sandwiches for the unhoused has drastically dropped. And so we decided we were going to pick it up, right? What are you up to? And start doing that every Sunday. We were going to pack hundreds of sandwiches. So it may be that, it may be something else that your community, but these are just lots of examples of things that you might think about instituting. So I would say, listen to that interview early on to think about how you might preach about and proclaim about and practice micro practices for justice. All right, so this is a picture of when the series begins, highlighted hashtags in that menu, and sermon discussion. That's where you can click on that and where the discussions are going to be happening. All right. So children's time. I told you that we got inspired by the movie Up. How can we not with this theme? And so I watched the movie and I just thought, oh my gosh, there's so many lessons in this. And then I started Googling, and there are so many classrooms that used this movie to teach lessons about love, about memory, about adventure, about so many things. And so we created children's time based on that story. So a little bit of the story gets done every week, but they also stand alone. So don't worry about visitors. And you don't show movie clips, right? Which gets a little bit complicated, but there's a children's book that is a distilled version of the movie that we used, and you can use that children's book every time. We also suggest that you use our adventure book, make one of your own. It's prominent in the movie, and so you'll be looking into our adventure book and doing some activities related to that. It's a wonderful film for a multi-generational movie night, if you'd all like to look at it together towards the beginning of the series. Again, it's, the main character is an elder gentleman. And so, it's not just it's just not all about kids, but it's about this beautiful intergenerational relationship. When I grew up in Adrian, First United Methodist Church, Adrian, one of the micro practices that we had was adoptive grandparents. And my brother and I still remember our adoptive grandparents and that beautiful intergenerational relationships that the church helped to cultivate. And so that could be a practice, a micro practice. You could get up to intergenerational relationships if that's something that would be good for your community. All right, so let's talk about music in this series. Okay, we have a threshold song that we suggest, hymns and songs, of course, for every service, and we always do sort of a hymn that's in the classical tradition, right? A traditional kind of thing from various hymnals, and we try to pick ones that will be fairly common among lots of hymnals. And we also do modern or contemporary song suggestions for those of you who are doing multiple services or your service utilizes that repertoire. So we have those, and of course, adapt. If what we've chosen doesn't work for you, look at what we've chosen for its theology, for its feel, and then do something that's more familiar for your folks, if that's the case. We have a children's time song. I'm going to show you these in just a moment. We have choral and band suggestions. And again, same thing, adapt, look at what we've suggested and adapt if you need to. Prayer song, a suggestion for a prayer song, that's one of my favorites. Communion responses based on that prayer song, and I've written a thematic doxology. So let's just take a look at this. Now, we have started in the thread on the website, we have started an interesting conversation about the threshold song that we have suggested. You Raise Me Up. It is like the first verse, it's just the first verse and the chorus. And it's so perfect for the theme, right? For the Lenten theme, when I'm down, da da da, you raise me up. And I also was like, oh, is this too overdone? Will people think, oh, that's kitschy? And will they not be able to get Josh Groban's voice out of their head? Will they love it or will they hate it? Well, here's what I decided. I decided to use it as the suggestion. Many people said it's one of the most requested for funerals, for weddings. So I decided to go ahead and use that. and then give you some alternatives here in this Get Ready webinar. So one of the things I want to encourage you to do, I'm going to play a little bit for you right now, and that is get Josh Groban's voice out of your mind and listen. We're going to listen just for a moment to the choral piece. So this is a threshold song, is like a theme song. It's like an introit, to use some traditional language. So I want to play this little bit of it from the choral version. So it might not feel so angst-ridden or kitschy if you consider using your choir in this way. Okay, let's take a listen.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burden me, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be.
So that's a lovely arrangement. But also, when you do these thread songs, what I call thread songs, they're repeated every week. One of the things that you can think of is, yeah, your adult choir could do that maybe a couple weeks, but then, if you have a youth choir, have them do it. If you have a children's choir, do a much scaled down, or a soloist, a young person who needs, a chance to do a solo, do it instrumentally. If you have somebody who plays the flute or the cello or the violin, so you can switch it up. It doesn't have to be the same every week. So just think about that when you're wondering, will my congregation want to hear this every week? And really, it's just that verse and chorus. That's all it is. It doesn't do the full-blown thing. We do recommend in one of the services the whole piece, but the whole choral piece. All right, but some alternatives would be to instead use the song that we have contracted with Nancy Honeytree, who is the composer, for the children's time. So you're going to sing this as children go back to their seats or go to their children's church or whatever it is that you do. It's very simple, and it's called Up to Something Good. And so let's take a little listen to it. So either you use this just in your children's time, or you could replace that theme song, that threshold song, with this. All right, here it goes.
I'm gonna believe that you are up to something good. I'm gonna believe that you are up to something good when I can't understand the things that happened in my life. I'm gonna believe that you are up to something good.
All right, so it's just that chorus, and the piano accompaniment and the lead sheet will have both English and Spanish. Nancy is sending that to me so that we can. That's not yet uploaded, but just yesterday she agreed and is going to send me the Spanish language, so you could also do that in Spanish. So that's a possibility. Eagle's Wings was another song that I contemplated, but eagle then gets into a different metaphor. It's so concrete as to get to a different metaphor. But that is another one that could be used, right? That has that sense of lifting, that sense of being lifted up. And then there's another song called Lift Up My Spirit that is one of our choral suggestions for one of the weeks that you could use just the refrain for a threshold song. So let me just give you a taste of that. I promised people on the thread that I would tell you some alternatives to You Raise Me Up. So here's another one.
If there is one I'm gonna learn how to sing it out loud and see what I can be. I will make it a part of me for all the world to see. I have the strength to believe. I will lift up my spirit and sing.
You can do just that part, or you can go into.
I'm gonna lift up my spirit. I'm gonna lift up my spirit and sing. Oh yes, I'll lift up my spirit. I will lift up my spirit and sing.
Right? So, you have the power to do it in whatever feel. You could also say, God's going to lift up my spirit. You could do several things. So there are lots of alternatives there in terms of feel and theology. So just wanted to give you those alternatives, but also invite you to consider You Raise Me Up as well. Okay. So speaking of the choral and band songs, that's one of the examples is what you just heard. And here's the thing about this series. I went to the choral repertoire, and as I usually do, I listen to skedaddles of things so I can make suggestions for you. And I began to look at titles that use the word up, right? Now, when you do that, you get a lot of upbeat music. So they may not feel particularly Lenten, but again, remember that Lent wasn't always a somber time, right? And it's a little different take. And it may be that you have decided to do this series because your community is down enough. So an uplifting kind of feel could be. Now, it still has all of the Lenten scriptures, it still has that depth, but the feel might be a little bit different. Now, I will also tell you that in the music document, I went to a concert recently, a beautiful choral ensemble here in Kansas City, and the repertoire was chosen based on that idea that it's called an effect, the astronaut effect or whatever, of the amazement, of the awe that people have when they see the Earth from outer space. And so the repertoire they did was absolutely stunning. It was ethereal. It was space-like in some ways. So I have given you also some alternatives of those things. Now, I will tell you, it's for an advanced choir. But you could also think about using some of those things. If you're doing a Bible study, if you're doing a small group, you might play some of those things. It's just that beautiful feeling of sort of seeing the big picture, of imagining yourself being able, like a bird, to see being in a hot air balloon and flying over the earth. If you've ever been in a hot air balloon, I've done it once, you know what that awesome feeling is like. And it's sometimes very quiet, right? Really quiet up there. So that's another alternative choral kind of repertoire. And of course, I also give you suggestions that are more band friendly for that moment. All right. So the prayer song is one of my favorites. I've been singing this for a long time. Let my prayer rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. Based on Psalm 114, that those words are right from that. Now, let me just start playing. We've created a little video for you to play on your screens of incense. Incense is something that the Smells and Bells denominations like to do. But oftentimes people are scent sensitive, especially if they're not used to incense in church. That could be a problem. So instead, to get the visual of that rising up could be important. So we've created a video for you. Now we've got the one that is just the visuals there that you would sing and play on top of and speak the prayers on top of it. You can use it as a loop. But we're also going to put one in that has the song and the words with it, so you can do kind of a sing along as well. So that is the prayer song, and it weaves its way through some intercessory prayer. I also use that tune in the communion setting. So I wrote a communion prayer that's based on all the traditional sections of the prayers, but infused with the theme. And then I use this same tune and wrote some of the sung parts of the congregation. So Christ our Lord has died, and Christ is now risen. Our lifted hearts proclaim Christ will come to us again. Right? So it's something that folks will already have in their heads, and then they'll be able to use that. And we have created the scores for the systems for you to put into your worship guides to help people sing that. All right, so then finally, a thematic doxology, which I often like to do to a familiar tune. So this is words that I put to, what are you up to for my sake? What are you up to for the good? Would you come now, follow, join up? Let us take up, wake up anew. Let us build up, fill up with you. Let us lift up the gifts we raise up for the shape of heaven on earth. Okay, so that's my little ditty for the doxology for this series. I find that really fun to do. And here's the thing, we have people in the worship design studio, we have shared resources, and often we have people who are creative, who create new materials to go with the theme, and then we share them with everybody, right? So that's everything from videos that people put together for children's time to new words to familiar tunes for different things. So it really is fun to be part of this community that's sharing and creating together beyond what we create. Love that. Okay, so Jenna, I'm going to stop for a moment so we can talk about words and music questions before I go to visuals.
We got a question. We have some really great things happening in the chat for people who are suggesting even more rise up and upward kind of songs that might work as threshold songs. So I'm keeping track of those. We'll include those with the notes just to give people even more options to work with.
That's great.
I'm looking through here. I don't see any other. There was a discussion about whether to use that you raise me up as the threshold moment instead. People can use their discretion about that. But we did have a question wondering if there's a link to that anthem recording that you had shared and who the arrangers are.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember if yesterday when I pulled that recording, if it was the arrangement that we have listed in the materials. But we do have one listed in the materials. But you can go to J.W. Pepper, which is really my go-to place for researching anthems, and put in that song, and all of the arrangements will pop up and you can listen to every one. And some of them are SATB, some are SSA, some are, so you can really get the one that works the best for your congregation, for your choir.
Awesome. That's all I see about music right now.
Okay, great. Well, let's keep on keeping on and get to some visuals. All right. So Jenna, as usual, has put together our visual and media arts ideas. And you can see the table of contents there. So let's just get to some of the actual ideas. So Jenna, are you staying on to help us through these visual ideas, or
I can if you'd like me to.
you just hung around and you didn't turn off your camera, so I thought
I did. All right.
to help us through this. But we found,
I'll go away, but I'll be right here if you need me.
We of course, Pinterest is our friend, right? So pinterest.com/worship studio, and then there's a whole board made of the all the things that we're sort of thinking about. So you can get ideas there, but we also have those ideas in the document. So let's take a look. There is no shortage of, when that Up movie came out, There was so many creative ideas that came out based on that movie, based on, you know, an interactive way to do a hot air balloon. Lots of these could be done like outside in a outside for picture ops for the neighborhood, maybe for a short time, but can live inside in your narthex or in a hallway for photo ops, that kind of thing. It could also be that you have this, if you want to, in a corner of your sanctuary, if you have that possibility and room for that. This could also be the basket where prayers get put in at prayer time. People can collect those and add to those prayers and affirmations. We've got something in the script about that. And then for Easter, you could put all those affirmations, make something that would be a collage of all those affirmations. But just lots of fun ways to create something without having to have a hot air balloon, right? So those either inside or outside the sanctuary. These are some smaller things you can get online. These are pretty small, the actual hot air balloon ones. But another way you can do it is to get some larger, these paper lanterns, which you can get in any color. So if you want to do the Lent purple, right, keep it in that purple color. And then, you know, you can get different sizes, different colors if you want a different color palette. You can even do things, I thought this was a great idea, if you use these, to use some of them for flowers, flower setting on the table, you know, using them in different creative ways. But you can also take these and then take dowel rods and a basket and create a hot air balloon out of those paper lanterns. Here's an example of it right here. Very simple. You could hang those if you have a way to hang things. And this picture actually on Pinterest made me think of the idea during offering to have people write maybe on a card insert, affirmations. If you were to send a message to the world, right? What would that be? And how, you know, lifting up, how uplifting messages, right? So using that metaphor to think about how can we offer uplifting messages in the world? So upcycling, in our wordplay, we came across upcycling. And so that's one of the things that we think could be a fun project for your carpenters, your crafters, your, you know, various things. And upcycling is about not just recycling, but upcycling, taking something older and repurposing it into something else. So that's something that we thought about, which leads me to talking about often your visual ideas turn into what we call yes and rhythm flexible engagement ideas that are meant to extend the message beyond the time and place of worship. And so some of the things that we thought about were those upcycling, right? So a fun project that could also create something upcycled for, you know, that the world needs, right? So whatever that is, creating kits, health kits, that kind of thing. Communal canning. So in the spring, especially with an early Lent, in the spring, there may not be that much to can, but, you know, this came from my background in my Midwest upbringing, see, up is everywhere. We called it putting up, right? Canning was called putting up. So it may be that you can start a group, and what you would do is have your already expert canners in your, I don't know if that's what you call them, in your congregation, talk about how they do it. Maybe you could taste some of the canned goods that they already have, and then that could continue in a way. Maybe that leads to a community garden that then leads to canning, that leads to canning for food banks, for whatever. So that's another kind of play on words that could be a yes and possibility. The other thing is to do a podcast or do interviews of some kind with people who are uplifting the community through the things that they are doing. This could be individuals, this could be nonprofits, this could be anything, but the series really could highlight the ways, the micro practices, because not anybody is doing it all, is changing everything, but everybody's doing something small to contribute to good in the world. And so this is a great way that you could extend the message beyond Sunday morning and have that, post that on your Facebook page, post that in newsletters, post that on SoundCloud, that kind of thing, but to extend that so that people get more into the joy of what it means to be up to something good. And then the daily devotional journals. Oh, my friends, I'm so excited about this. So this daily devotional, I really want to do a daily because in my brainstorming about upwards, there was just so many. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to use these as daily prompts? So that's what I did. I wrote this whole journal, daily journal for Lent. It will have, the theme of the week in the first one, store up. This is your Ash Wednesday. And then there's always a weekly page that has a prayer. So there's a scripture from the service, there's a prayer from the service that I've taken the we language and made it I language so that this is a personal journal. And then we're highlighting the music. Oh, Joy Aladakun is this amazing young musician that has just incredible messages, both uplifting, but also recognizing the sorrow of the world. And Jenna, as I said at the top of the webinar, Jenna turned me on to her song Look Up as a possibility. And then I started listening to everything she had and realized that she is the prophetic voice of this message, doing small but important things in the world. She's a poet and prophet. And so every week I have a song that I feature, and all you have to do is look at the QR code. It brings up a video of one of her songs. So that's in the devotional journal. And then each day I have a phrase. So store up is Ash Wednesday because that's what the service is. But then Thursday is choked up. We all get choked up about something. This is our body, mind, spirits letting us know we're connected and caring. Researchers have shown that empathy is an essential part of living out of vital humanity. What moves you in this world? So you see there's the phrase, the up phrase is just a launch pad for a sort of personal discernment. Friday is bottoms up, right? Drinking deeply from the well of life, the elixir of life. What activities quench your thirst for life? How could your passion be shared or benefit others? Saturday is wrapped up. To get wrapped up in something is to allow ourselves to be consumed, to follow a dream or a passion to its completion, or at least until something else calls our name. Is there something that you are yearning to get wrapped up in, but keep putting off, right? So all of it is meant to help you begin some aspect of self-reflection. And I have written those and have chosen up phrases for every day in Lent. So you can actually go download this for free right now at worshipdesignstudio.com/upjournal, all one word, all small. Actually, what we're going to do to digitize this is we are going to post links on this website, and anybody in your church can have this link, right? And then you'll just click on the day and you will be able to go in and add some commentary, add your reflections on a community wall. We have some filtering in place to make sure that bots don't, get in on it. But you can add, your reflection there and read other people's reflection. And this is one way that we can have across churches who are doing this and extended beyond the churches who are doing this. We can have some sharing in this digital way. It's super easy on the phone as well. So your digital natives will love that. So it'll be a good thing, especially for your youth and young adults to get into. So I'm very super excited about this and look forward to that kind of conversing during the season. All right. So small group suggestions beyond the daily devotionals. We, of course, make suggestions for book studies. We have several for adults. We also have some for teens. We have some suggestions for children. So those of in your churches that do children's ministries, these may help you fill out what you're doing in your educational hours, or just parents doing it. We have, as usual, a small group leader script, so anybody can convene and lead a small group. And it's generic enough that you can just, whatever book that you're reading or whatever resource you're doing, you can use it as a guide to help lead small groups. And of course, there's the guided journal for individuals, but I would also venture a guess that you could meet weekly with small groups who want to discuss some of the journaling that they have done together. And that could be a small group. It could be just with a friend over coffee. It could be around the family table. It could be done in so many different ways. And so lots of ways to extend this theme and diving deeper beyond worship, but as a complement to worship. All right, friends, as usual, we have social media posts that we have created. Jennifer Yoakum on our staff has created these based on the messages for every week. And so you have free daily social media memes that you can download and add to your social media, your church's page, your Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is that you use. And use that. You can for a here, I'll just show you. This is where you find this on the website. It's a separate download from the series materials, but you just says free social media images. You go there, download the images here, and if you want a customizable version of the content, you can upgrade to that, and it won't have Worship Design Studio on those slides. All right, hold on. All right, got to wet the whistle. Okay, so here's just some examples so you can see. So Jennifer pulls out some of the meme-worthy things from worship and puts that with a visual. Instead of bemoaning what we can't do or used to do in a culture where measuring up to external standards seems impossible, this Lent we will celebrate the small things we can do right now to respond to God's call in our place for our time. So that's pulled out of the synopsis for that week, or it's actually for Ash Wednesday. And then she pulls things out of the benediction and the prayers. We pray that we can be up to something good for ourselves, our neighborhoods, and our world. And then an example of a prayer, show us as Jesus did, that letting go of our own security and comfort is the only way to create space for your justice to move over the earth. So just some of the meme-worthy kinds of things from worship get put into these social media posts that can sort of keep that message out there beyond worship. Adapt, 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 friends. For those of you who are new to the Worship Design Studio, this is one of the most important things that we hold dear, and that is that we give you all the ideas, even down to the very specific words and hymns and prayers and images and things. And then we give you the ability through the Word documents, through the links to Canva, if you're in that, through the trailers that don't have our stuff on it, to customize it, to adapt it. And we really want you to take us seriously, because we know I've been in ministry for 30 years consulting with churches. So I have seen everything from, 6 people in worship to 20,000 in worship. And I know that no congregation is the same, that your folks need to hear things in different ways. And so we want to support you in bringing the message alive in the way that you will do that, but give you more than you can use so that you're not starting from scratch, so that you're really just adapting from a really concrete place. And it's also what we have found is that worship teams, when you start from a concrete place rather than, okay, what are we going to do for year B this year? When you start with a concrete theme, then your volunteers can get creative right away, either doing ideas that we've put out there or adapting those ideas, because sometimes our ideas will just spur them to their own idea, right? And so that is something I know about studying creativity, is that none of us do this from absolute nil, right? We do it by bouncing ideas. And so we want you to bounce your ideas off of us. And so that's why my ministry has taken this turn to these kinds of materials. We also believe in sensory-rich worship, and that means that we want to give you ideas for all the worship arts, not just visual, not just words, not just music, not just, dramatic, not just me. We want you to feel that you have access to ideas for all of the senses, all of the worship arts, because people learn in different ways. And so we want to be sure that you're equipped to share that message in many different ways. Not everybody's coming for your sermon. I'm really sorry to tell you that. They're going to get it through the music or through the visuals or through the dramatization or whatever it is. They're going to get it in different ways. All right, friends, the last thing I'm going to do is just quickly show you what a script looks like for those of you, especially who've never done a Worship Design Studio script. And then we will take any last minute questions, and then we'll be done. So let me get to my Word document, and we will take a quick look at that. And why can't I see this here? Microsoft Word, there we are. Okay. All right, we give you all these scripts in a PDF and a Word doc. PDF so that you can always go back to the original and see after you've messed with it to see what's going on. And a PDF because sometimes the links are more clickable in a PDF when you're going to listen to music and things like that. So here is Lent 1. This is what a script looks like. So all of the red are what we are called rubrics. That's the fancy liturgical term for stage directions or notes to you. We believe in flow and transition, that worship is a journey from beginning to end and not just a checklist of things. So you're going to see things along the way, suggestions, of course you can adapt, but suggestions for the way that music can function as an underscore, as a soundscape. There's lots of research that says that we listen better when there's music under there. And in the music document, if you've never done that before, we have a link to some education about how to do that well, how to not steal the thunder from the words, but to actually help lift up the words. So all the leader words, and when I say adapt, I mean, like, read these words. This is word for word, but you might say it a little bit differently. So adapt, edit, please. Say it the way you would say it. Practice it so it feels like it's coming from you and not just off of a page. This is how we see that that song coming in, and then a unison prayer, a meditative moment, so some silence, or keep the accompaniment underscoring under there. The psalmist is always the assurance in this series. So a little bit from the psalm, from the lectionary, and then the piece, right? Opening hymn song. So here we are. Here's the classic, more traditional Lord who throughout these 40 days. Maybe that's what you're going to do. Maybe you are disciples, and so you're going to use the chalice hymnal. So you're going to get rid of that plus the 40 days contemporary one. So as you're making your own script, you're just going to adapt this word thing and do this. So what's up with children, the children's document, the actual script is in a separate document so that you can just give that to the whoever is doing that children's time. And then here's that song. So if you're not doing the song, let's just say you decided you're not doing that song. What you would do is you would go, oh, not doing the song. Okay, and then at the end of children's time, they move back to their seats, or and that maybe you're going to children, so you're going to take out back to their seats, move to children's church, and the choir prepares to sing. And no, we're not going to do that song, so I'm going to take that out. And so you see, you're making this for your own use, right? And when you do this with Lent 1, you're making your decisions about what you're going to use, what you're not going to use all along the way. And then you go through, don't wait till week 2 of Lent to edit the next one. We know that we get more done with less energy and less time if we batch it. So you're going to do a batch of all of your services. Once you've made those decisions in Lent 1, you can go to Lent 2, 3, 4, 5, make those same kinds of things, and then your scripts are ready for the season. That's super cool. Okay. So lift me up. We're going to do that one, or maybe we're going to do our own. We can't really do that. Find our own. And maybe I put that in a different color so that tells my music director, green is the things I need for you to do, right? So when you have these scripts, find our own. Okay. So you could even put in reader name here, right? So reader name, I mean, not literally that, but you would put a reader's name there. So this is what I want this to do, is to help you in a flash have things ready for your series before the series begins, so that the most of your creative process is not happening week to week. It's happening in batches before the series. Then your folks can help you, can get good help with the things that need to get done. Readers can be asked, etc. They can already have their script well before. And you get to work on, preachers, you get to work on your sermon the week of, not everything plus your sermon. All right, that is the idea. For those of you who haven't studied with me before. All right, sermon fodder and the downloads, etc. Let my prayer rise up, etc. Now this is a script, so not the whole congregation's not going to have this, right? The worship guide then gets done. And what I do for that is I take my script and I go, okay, I'm going to add, here's my specific listing of my music for the prelude, and take that out. Okay, that we acknowledge what's okay. I'm going to have all those. You raise me up. Now I don't need any of this for my worship guide. I would, duplicate my document so that I can do that. And instead of this, I'm going to actually put in the music for You Raise Me Up, right? So I'm going to put music in here and take that out. Okay, then yes, I need that in the worship guide because we're going to pray together. Or if you don't use paper and you just use screens, here's what I do. I do this. I make this blue, and that, let's make it a better blue. And that tells my person who's making slides. I know some of you pastors are going, yeah, that would be me. But for whoever's doing it, that we need a slide of that, right? So this is the prep for worship guide or slides, that kind of thing. All right, so let's go back down here. Here's prayers. Again, adapt the language. Put in maybe the actual line that we have created for you for singing, the notes. So some of this is going to go out when you make the worship guide, but for the script that leaders use, you're going to have all this in it. All right, there's offertory, doxology, offertory prayer. You'll notice that instead of sending forth, I used up, gathering. I can't remember what all four, but you'll see they all use the word up. And if that's not, kosher for to use a word for your congregation, then just get rid of it and put sending forth, right? Your congregation, how much out of the box you can go before they start getting distracted, right? I'm all for pushing the envelope, but not to the point where people are distracted from the message. So you get to discern that. All right. So there's always a blessing for the journey and a postlude. Okay, friends, that's what a script looks like. That's what it looks like to adapt, to get it prepped. What questions, Jenna, do we have to finish off before we say goodbye?
We had a question from someone who said, I've never used one of these series before. How do you define fully scripted? Based on what you said about the sermon fodder, it sounds like there is not an additional scripted sermon or outline. Is that
Right.
correct?
So fully scripted refers to the actual worship scripts, the order of worship. And as you saw on that little look into Lent 1 script, all the words are there, all the song suggestions are there, everything down to how you might weave music underneath some of the words and not under some of the other words. All the communion, all the words for children's time. The sermon is the only thing that we do not write for you. We give you tons of fodder, meaning sort of what were we thinking? How does the scripture connect to the theme? Here's some examples that you could use, right? So there's enough there that actually, I'd love for somebody who has used our series before in the chat to say how the sermon fodder relates to their sermon writing. But it's really because I don't believe that I can write the sermon for you, because sermons are meant to be personal. They're meant to use some of your own experience. They're meant to theologically come from your theological spiritual center, for your community. They're meant to use examples from your community. And so there's no way I could do that. All I can do is give you enough to get going. Okay, thank you.
And a question here, I don't know if we'll have the answer to this. A. David Paul said, is there a way to keep balloons inflated for 40 days?
Maybe not. You might, well, to use those paper lanterns. This is why I think the paper lanterns are actually a great idea. Because a lot of the balloon pictures you see were for one event, right? A one-day event. So it may be that you have to replace them, or you decide you're just going to use the paper lanterns, or you just use the balloons for a special time. Maybe the balloons come out at Easter, right? That you make a big basket with the balloons so people can take their pictures, their Easter pictures inside the balloon, right? So you'll have to experiment with that. All I can say is experiment. I'm about to order some of those paper lanterns so that I can play with those and give you a little bit more detail about what my experience is of putting the dowel rods and the baskets on. I try to do a little trial run of these things that we suggest so that I can report back to you. But yeah, I would say experiment. And that's a great thing in the website, where there's a photos and ideas in the horizontal menu. And if you have a question like that, put it there. Or if you have a solution like that, or if you experimented and the balloons lasted for 2 weeks, but that's it. Um, do some experimenting before the series begins, and let's get a conversation going in the website.
Awesome. That's all I see for questions for now.
Oh my gosh. And I see that some people are answering that sermon fodder question. Thank you so much. That's what I love about this community. Thank you all so much for being part of the Worship Design Studio. And if you've never been part of the Worship Design Studio, I hope this has helped you understand sort of some of our philosophy about why we do what we do, what it is that we offer you, and how it is that you can utilize it, but also adapt it, be part of a community who is adapting it, be part of the exchange of ideas. We really are just a jumping off point, and we really deep down, I think the most important thing that drives the way I do this, that's maybe different from the way others use this and do this, and that is that I believe wholeheartedly in liturgy as the work of the people. And when you have concrete ideas, when you have concrete things, when you have scripts far enough ahead of time, you can use more volunteers, and there could be more people actively participating, actively leading. When you have ideas for ritual action that involves everyone, it really brings the story alive. I know this from my neuroscience research, but I also know it from the depths of my heart, my spirituality, and my theology, that worship is not a spectator sport. It's something that we do together. And we leaders are here to create the container, to curate the experience in which others come and inflesh this whole way of being together in our worship, worshiping the God who sustains us, who lifts us up, and who will, as a co-creator with us, help us to create practices that make the world a better place. So when Ash Wednesday comes around on February 14th in 2024, if you're watching this in 2024, and people wonder, oh, how am I going to do Valentine's Day without giving up chocolate? Tell them they don't have to give anything up. This year, we're going to focus on what we're up to rather than what we're giving up. All right, friends, thank you so much. Bye-bye. Take care. Many blessings.